So there was that very vicious media campaign, highlighting what happened in the USA, and straight after that, we began to feel the impact of that on the community. So some of the Muslim sisters who particularly are with hijab walking in the street, there were a few incidents when the hijab was pulled off their hair, and there were a few incidents when the bus for the Islamic school was attacked. And we began to guard our mosques, which is it's a sad thing to do in a country like Australia. But that was happening immediately after 9/11. We began to guard our mosques. In Brisbane alone, there are about 60 masjids or mosques. In Australia, about 100, and they are flourishing. That's excluding the musallas in the universities. So many of Australian universities provide prayer rooms, musallas, and also for Jum'ah Salah, for the 5 times prayer, and also they have halal facilities in their canteens, halal food. Some of you may have studied in Australia and have experienced that. And which is interesting because many of the Muslims who come from the Middle East, the last thing they expect is a musalla at an Australian university, a prayer room. And the last thing they expect is halal food, if you like, at the universities. But most universities provide these things. So the mosques were being guarded, and 2 weeks after 9/11, 2 weeks almost after 9/11, our mosque, I was living 100 meters away from that mosque. At that time, it was an old building, an old church that was made into a mosque. It was purchased. The land was called the Acre of God, and we kept it as the Acre of God. And the mosque was a wooden house. So one night when there was nobody to guard the mosque, somebody came and put the gasoline inside the mosque and burned it down to the grounds. It was the only mosque in Australia that was burned down to the grounds, and if I am not wrong, it is probably the only mosque in the West and Europe that was completely burned down to the grounds. Other mosques, of course, were attacked elsewhere. So I was next to the mosque, 2:45 a.m., Sunday morning, my wife woke me up and she said, "Our house is on fire." So we thought our house was on fire because the fire was very close to us. Between me and the mosque there is another small house where there is an Australian Anglo-Saxon non-Muslim lady who is 85 years old, alone by herself. And on my right hand there is also a house of a couple, Australian couple, who are also elderly. So my wife woke me up and I saw that the mosque was on fire. Because they were closer to the mosque, my first reaction was I should go and help them move away from the direction of the fire. So I went running to the house with the old lady, 85 years old, and I said, "Please come to our house as well." She says, "No, it's all right, I'll put the fire off with the hose." Yeah, good luck, you know.
Good luck.
But thank God, the fire never came close to any of these houses. So the mosque was completely burned down. And as sad as it was, they say in Arabic, unless something beneficial has or have goodness in it, or blessings in disguise, as we say, right? And so many doors of opportunities were opened after the burning of that masjid. And I said to our community, consider the masjid a shaheed, a martyr, right? And now take that opportunity to showcase Islam, if you like, for those people who don't know about Islam. And fair enough, they don't know about Islam. You know why they don't know about Islam? Because the Islamic community failed to go out there before the problem happened, before 9/11, and say, "Listen, we are normal human beings. This is what we believe in. Come to our mosque and have a look, and go to the neighbors." So essentially, the Islamic community in Australia, prior to 9/11, felt that they were living so comfortably, and that is the case. They were living very comfortably. And if we are honest with ourselves as Australian Muslims, we would say that we are living in Australia more comfortably than we were living back in our countries, right? And in terms of justice and fairness and equity, or the service of welfare, free education, free medication, we have access to all of that. And we are as equal citizens as anybody else there who says he's an Australian or she's an Australian. And we have the ability to challenge the systems and institutions like anyone else. But prior to 9/11, we were living in our own bubble. We were living in our own shell. And we felt there is no need to do outreach. There is no need to go out there and engage in building bridges of understanding. We felt there was no need to promote understanding. There was no need to have interfaith dialogue. It may have happened at a very minute level, but it wasn't there at the grand level. So 9/11 happened, our mosque gets burned down, and I like to repeat the story because I love it so much, that everything in the mosque was burned down, except a page from Kitab Riyadh al-Salihin, the Hadith collection, Riyadh al-Salihin, which all of you should have heard about. It's a book of the collection of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. And everything was burned except one page. It was burned all around, and in that page there was one hadith, one statement of the Prophet ﷺ, and you would never ever guess what that hadith is. You would never in your life guess what that hadith is. And that hadith was just a message for our community when the mosque was burned down. It's like a divine message. And the hadith was for the Arab, for those who understand Arabic. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما الشديد الذي يملك نفسه عند الله. The meaning of which is that a strong person is not one who wrestles and defeats others, but one who controls himself in times of anger.
Allah.
Right? So now you can imagine how the community was really angry. And by 3:30 a.m., the whole Muslim community was on site. And I recall we made the Fajr prayer that day outside. Not only the Muslim community, now we have the media coming, and we have the politicians, because they were frightened of a backlash. Right? So that message is so profound for Muslims, because it also allows us to reinvigorate the spiritual teachings of Islam, which we have often forgotten about. Islam, to many Muslims, has become the external observances of Islam. And we have forgotten the spirit of Islam that allows us to reform ourselves to become true human beings. And one of those principles is controlling oneself in times of anger. Right? When a man came to the Prophet and he says, Awsini, he says, give me advice. Do not get angry. And the man belittled that. He's coming to the Prophet ﷺ and he wants a bigger advice, you know. He said, again, he said, in Swat Awsini. The second time he asked the Prophet ﷺ, give me advice. Do not get angry. And the third time he said, give me another advice. Do not get angry. 3 times he repeated it. Because when we get angry, as Imam al-Ghazali says, when a person gets angry, shaitan or the devil takes control of him like a child controls a ball. You know, plays around with us as he wants. And that is not to say that anger with justice sometimes is needed, right? Is necessary with justice. Anyhow. So that was our response. We said, look, we didn't know who burned the mosque. They found him. They gave him 7 years jail sentence, which is very, very harsh. And our message was, we don't want him to be jailed. We would rather that he's out of jail, but the law had to do what the law had to do. From that moment on, not only us in Brisbane, but the entire Muslim community in Australia began engaging. And the good thing is that we did start engaging. The bad thing is that we had to wait for a tragedy to get us engaged. Right? And the message that I always carry through to whoever I speak to, don't wait for conflict to happen so that you engage with the other. Go ahead and begin engaging with the other. The other meaning whether those who don't follow particularly our faith, or they don't have our ideas, or etc. And one of the greatest ways of breaking down perceptions and misconceptions is to meet people and speak to them face to face. It is much more powerful than writing books. It is much more powerful than speaking on TV. It is much more powerful than just standing and speaking. Going and meeting those people who, in your estimation, are the other. And go with courage and stand in front of them and define for them who you are. Passionately and compassionately. And allow them to accept that. And that's what I found throughout my experience in the last 10 or 11 years. I have been to some of the most remote areas in Australia. Very conservative areas in Australia. Sometimes very small towns. And everywhere I have been, dressed the way I am. But with a good feeling in the heart that I want to engage with people and I want them to understand what Islam is. And I have had nothing but positive response from every person and every place I have been to. Now, I don't want to talk about my personal story, but I want to talk about the Islamic community. And so, by force, the Islamic community of Australia began engaging with the wider Australian community, but also importantly, re-examining their own selves, which we often don't do. This critical examination of who we are, critical examination of how have we applied our faith, critical examination of have we been able to contextualize our faith, critical examination of am I practicing cultural Islam, customary Islam, or the Islam that is Islam? And the challenge is more difficult for us in Australia because Muslims, we have Bengalis and Pakistanis and Sudanese and Algerians and Jordanians and Palestinians and Bengalis and Fijians. How do you deal with all these Muslims? Right? And so there was a process of engaging with the wider Australian community by way of going and speaking to them, and also by way of interfaith dialogue. And I know some people are cautious about interfaith dialogue. They think sometimes it's just symbolic and it's words. Yes, it starts off like that. And I'm of those people who say that interfaith dialogue should not be a dialogue where we say all religions are the same, we make a mixed salad of all religions, everything is fine, we all love each other, and everything, there's no problems to... No, that is not what interfaith dialogue should be about. Interfaith dialogue, in fact, the word dialogue comes from the Greek root word dia, meaning to look, to see through. So the ability to see through others, to see through how they define themselves, to give somebody else the platform and the opportunity to express to you about their beliefs and about their convictions. By doing so, it allows and creates better understanding. Because I don't like tolerance. I don't like the word tolerance. Because you tolerate somebody when you have no choice but to tolerate them. But when the choice arises not to tolerate them, you will not tolerate them. But if you understand people's differences and accept these people's differences, then perhaps you will respect them. And I think that is based on the Islamic paradigm where Allah Ta'ala says, وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We have created you into nations and tribes so that you get to know one another. Differences between us is not meant to create problems, but it is meant to create cognizance of our differences and understanding, right? So there was a lot of engagement now with the Christian community, the Jewish community, the Buddhist community. Many of the churches were coming to our mosques now. They want to speak. Not only they were inviting us to speak to them, but they were coming to our mosques. We were inviting them over in the mosque. They would come, often with us to come maybe at around the Isha time, the prayer, the night prayer. So and they see how we pray. They listen to the Quran, and then we allow them to ask questions. And then when they leave, we say, we never knew Islam was so close to Christianity. You know, there are so many things in common. There are so many similarities. When I probably have been speaking for God knows how long now, but I said I'll speak for 3 hours, so I'll stop in about 2 hours. Now, one of the places I went to was a church. I took a group of imams who had just graduated from Jamiat al-Madina in Medina, in Mecca, which is seen by some people as a conservative university. And they were Algerians, to make matters worse, they were Algerians who are known to be hot-blooded and very hard-headed. They had graduated from Medina, and now they're in Australia. So I took them for the first time ever in their life to go to a church. Imams. And this particular church, Ashley Church, they wanted to have an Abrahamic prayer, where each group, the Muslims, the Jews and the Christians, no talks, no lectures, Everybody does his salah, his prayer, in front of the others.